Hi, my name is Anthony Zaccaria, and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, an agency that helps both brands and talent tell their story. To learn more, just visit neuralle.com. That's NEURALLE.com. My guest this week, Anthony Zaccaria, co-founder, chief commercial officer of Linktree and co-founder director at Bolster Group. Are you a Forza Italia kind of guy?
I was when I was younger, but not so much now. I'm second generation.
Yeah.
But I'm Australian now. My parents are very much that way and very proud of their heritage and very much instill that into us. And so, of course, we've still got it. It's always like when Italy or Australia play each other in any sport, like at the World Cup or anything like that. Everyone's like, who do you go for? Who do you go for? And because my grandmother, my nonna is always like, well, Italy, of course. Yeah. But secretly, I kind of go for Australia.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I don't know if you saw that thing on Brown. It was either Brown Cardigan or Batuta Advocate, and it was like all the guy who's got 1/8 Italian, and all of a sudden he's down on Lygon Street. I got a bunch of mates from the western suburbs who are Italian, and they're probably third generation, and like out of nowhere, all of a sudden they're just rabid fans.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, it's because I think growing up, I remember getting up for all the World Cup games because Italy was always in the World Cup, but Australia wasn't. And so it was like some sort of attachment to heritage and of that sort of ritual around it, that's just who you went for. So you kind of celebrated that because Italy was always at either the World Cup or, with Formula One or there's kind of world sports on the world stage. Australia never really got a Guernsey out except for, I guess cricket or the Olympics. But I wasn't really into cricket and the Olympics that much. So but I hear you on that. I got a lot of friends who do the same.
When you grew up, what sport did you play?
Did a few sports. I played footy, Aussie rules.
Okay.
Quite a bit from when I was about 7 or 8 until maybe 14, 15. Then at high school, I played soccer.
Okay.
Basketball.
Yeah, see, I'm this weird sort of second, third gen. My grandparents came here, but the kids, being my dad and uncles, were all really, really young. And my dad is the youngest, and he really wanted to be Aussie. He didn't like being known as like a wog because he looked like a real wog. So when you meet my dad, he looks like, our family's Greek Cypriot, so he looks very sort of almost Arabic, dark hair, skin. And as a kid, you should see the photos of him. He had like really curly hair and a mullet, stuff like that. But when you speak to him, when he opens his mouth, he's like as Aussie as meat pie, which is funny. And for him, it was all about like he wanted to play AFL, eat meat pies, Vegemite, all that sort of stuff. And then, I tried Auskick. I hated it. I ended up playing soccer for years because I just was not good at footy at all.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know how I got into playing footy. It just happened, I think. And my parents just took me to have a go at it, and I loved it and went for it. And then I think I did get over a little bit by teenage years. I preferred to get into soccer. But my dad was the opposite. He was like, he still got very thick Southern Italian accent, but it's kind of blended with some Aussie slang in there. It was kind of weird. It's quite hard to understand unless it's almost like he's got his own language now.
So it's like Sushi Mango. You ever seen Sushi Mango?
Yeah. There's a bit of that in there, definitely. Yeah.
What was the AFL team you guys supported as kids?
North Melbourne.
Okay.
The Shinboners. When my nonno, mum's dad, when he moved to Melbourne, he landed in Australia. He was out in the country for quite a while in Gippsland. But then when he came back to Melbourne, basically set up in North Melbourne. And that's where my mum was born and all of her sisters and brothers. So she grew up in North Melbourne, right around the corner from Arden Street. My grandfather's business was in North Melbourne. It wasn't until we were born that we moved out to the suburbs of Melbourne. But for that whole sort of first 20, 25 years of my mum's life, she was in North Melbourne. So that's kind of where that heritage came from.
Yeah. What's sort of your earliest memory? What's your earliest inception memory of life?
My grandparents had a holiday house in Rosebud on the Mornington Peninsula in Melbourne.
Okay.
where a lot of Italians had holiday houses. And it would have been down there with my grandparents, I would say.
Okay.
So there's a lot of strong early childhood memories down there. Or pizza night with my grandparents. It was like every Friday night was pizza night. And I remember as early as I can remember.
And I'm guessing do they cook at home, or do they order from like a local restaurant?
Oh, no, always cook at home. My nonno was staunch against going out. He was like, to get him to go out somewhere just to celebrate something, anybody's else's birthday, whatever, it would be such a battle. Like, you'd have to warm him up to it for a month. As he got older, the harder it got. But it was all about like, why do I go out? I've got the best cook at home, my nonna, his wife. Okay. And so he would be like, he doesn't want to go out. He's like a homebody. He had a huge veggie garden.
Of course.
He grew his own veggies. Going out was not a thing for him.
What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? I know you grew around a family that had their own businesses similar to myself, where it sort of sounds like everyone in the family had their own thing. But I guess I'm curious at that early stage in life when you've got these memories jumping around. And I don't know what your parents were like, but mine weren't too prohibitive around the type of work we had to do. But we were always in my dad's factory. He was a printer, sort of fourth generation printer. So people would say, oh, you're going to get into printing, right? So that was a thing for me. But I guess I'm curious for you growing up, what was that like?
Yeah, it changed around a lot, like a lot of kids probably, but similar. My parents weren't too prohibitive. As long as we were happy, there was an element there of like working in the family business, and it was just natural to do that. My grandparents had a music business where they imported musical instruments. My parents had one. I worked there through uni. We were always growing up around family's music business, but it was never a forced thing like, this is what you're going to do and this is all you're going to do. They encourage us all to study, encourage us all to travel and whatnot. So yeah, I think there was being around music. I definitely wanted to be a musician at one point. I played in bands at school and after school, tried my hand at the cello, the piano, the bass guitar, just gave it a shot. Kind of got over that pretty quickly, decided I'd rather be behind the scenes on the business side of music. But I think similar, I wanted to be at one point, I got into digital and digital design. I wanted to do like multimedia for a while. I think at one point I wanted to be a footy player when I first started playing footy when I was 8 or 9. That quickly went away. I was like, I like it, but it's not for me. It jumped around.
What made you realize that you didn't want to be the performer per se, but the person behind the scenes as you got older?
I think it was probably, I love the excitement of playing and not that we ever really played gigs to thousands of people, but I love the excitement and the passion around it. But I think I realized my skill set, I didn't like spending hours and hours and hours practicing. I liked being around the community and the industry. And I was able to get that by being on the business side. I think I realized my skill set was around relationships, and I could see it was more business led than it being creative led. And I think also being a musician, especially now, is effing hard. And I think I saw probably more potential being on the business side and being able to work across multiple things and being dedicated to just being a bass player, for example.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. It may be like an element of your personality. Like, do you find that when you talk about relationships, you must be, so would you say you're an extrovert or sort of ambiverted?
I'd say ambiverted. I only learned that recently.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I can be when I need to be. I love being around people and being around passionate people. And my work was always I was working in the family business, was in marketing and artist relations. Work has always been sort of in sales mode a little bit. So there's that element of being extroverted, but I wouldn't say like I need to be the life of the party. I'm happy to just be a bit kind of behind the scenes and be introverted when I most of the time I'm introverted too. I don't not like speaking my mind whenever someone asks me, or even if they don't ask me.
Yeah.
A little bit more tactical.
Do you like order? Are you a very conscientious type person?
Ordered chaos, I would say. Yeah. There's a method in my head, but I'm not like anal. Everything needs to be done like this with my millions to-do list in this perfect order. It's a little bit like wake up and go, shit, just hit the ground running.
Yeah, okay. But you've obviously got, like, I'm guessing you've got because the difference between a real true creative is someone who needs time and space to get completely lost in that creative experience.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who I find often is a business founder has a combination of both. They're often creative or creative enough to think openly about something and around an idea and a problem and solve a problem. But they also like order and things being, refined in some way. So maybe they have like a really stringent calendar, or I don't know. There's always a combination of that thing, so to speak.
There's definitely that. I do get a bit funny sometimes when, like, kind of often thinking ahead and like about we're working on a project or potential idea. I'm often the one to be like, hang on, we haven't thought of this, and this. Before we go and jump over there and have that conversation, we need to figure out these three things first and map that out a little bit. So I like order in that sense. Whereas working with my brother, he's the opposite, to be like, fuck it, let's just go over there now and do it and we'll figure it out later. And so there's a bit of that push and pull, which is good.
What's something that you can do that your brother can't do and vice versa?
That's a good question. What can I do? I could probably cook.
Okay.
I could probably think things through a little more, like I just said. But on his end, he definitely has more of that creative harebrained idea, like
he's the product guy.
Boldness. He's the product guy and the sort of creative visionary, so to speak. I'm a little bit more the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're yin and yang on that. Like growing up, Alex would always be the one to like put together the thing that came home. It was a mum and dad bought something. And it was like, cool, Alex, you read the manual, figure out how to set it up, how to get it working. You do it, And I'm a little bit more like, it's not, my brain's not working like that right now. You just, here's where we need to get to. Can you figure out the nuts and bolts of this thing? So, he's not a developer, but he knows enough technically to be able to work with developers and talk product and tech language enough to go that way, which has served us really well with Linktree.
Well, the thing is that the reason I asked is because when you found a business, particularly with a sibling, like in my case, our agency was co-founded by my wife and I. But, 3-4 years ago, it was just us as a couple, and people often ask, how the fuck do you do it? Like, it's the same thing that you get with people asking about family business. And there's often just got to be a place where you don't step on each other's toes too much. There has to be a thing that you can only do and he can only do. Not that either of you couldn't do it. It's just that you don't want to ever.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely been a bit of that. When we started our agency, he would lean more on the technical side of things and I would lean more on the business development side of things. Yeah. And we kind of just split things that way. It was like a natural split, but I've always tried to, it's way more defined now with Linktree, but it took us so long to get there on the work front. We would always be like, okay, let's split out who's doing what so everyone knows who to talk to for what things. But then we'd always just cross paths anyway. Yeah.
It's so funny when that happens. So your early studies in career, I mean, you studied at RMIT, did business, 4 years at Dominant Music. This was your own business, right? Dominant
Music was a family business. Yeah. Okay. So wholesale musical instrument distributors. So imported a bunch of different brands of bass guitars, guitar pickups, accessories like strings and all sorts of stuff. And so that was a family business. Worked in, before that, mum and dad had a music retail shop. So I was always growing up around that. When I was at uni, I studied at, with my older brother worked in the family business and ran that for quite a while. So I looked after a lot of the marketing and artist relation projects there.
Yeah. So, and then obviously left the family business, went to another, basically a sales position as an account manager, then partnership manager. So this is Sound Alliance, the Garrett Sale Trail, Native Digital as an account director. And then you've got 5 years at Bolster before you guys. So this is 2011 from memory. And then 2016 is when Linktree was developed out of that. I guess I was curious, over that period of time before Linktree and the growth of the agency was kicking off, what do you feel like were the golden principles that you had developed as a business operator that you pulled into your day-to-day operations? Like, what were the old cliches that you would just continually say to staff?
Yes, when I left the Sound Alliance, I started doing, worked at a couple other areas for a bit, in the Native and partnership and the Garrett Sale Trail, all sort of contract work. But it was that point that I really decided I didn't want to have a job again. And I wanted to just do my own thing. And that's when I started getting into artist management. Alex and I started our management business. We were managing a few artists. And I was living in Sydney. He was in Melbourne. We both started managing a couple of bands separately. As we thought, we're already doing this separately. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
He was running club nights and parties around a record label. We bought that together. And I was doing this freelance digital marketing stuff on the side, which then eventually turned into Bolster, the agency, when we sort of put a name around it and an ethos and what we were trying to do. Before that, it was just a freelance thing. And so, over that time, it was always just Alex and I, and it was like a massive grind. You don't make a huge amount of money from artist management. If your artist doesn't make money, you don't make money. So it's a little bit better at it now. There's an element of like, you figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Right. Like, not everything needs to be perfect at the first get-go. So we definitely brought a lot of that into the agency. We didn't have all the answers, but it was like, we know we could do something. So if we got asked by a client, hey, could you build this? We want to do this type of campaign for an artist. You guys think you can do it? And if you look at the staff we had, we might have had 2 or 3 at the time. Like, technically no, but yes, it's possible. Let's find a way. We'll figure it out. We'll either get a freelancer, we'll just wing it. We'll dedicate a weekend to figuring out how we could do something.
Yeah.
And then on Monday we'll call the client like, this is how we're going to roll it out.
Yeah.
And so it's not, I wouldn't say it's like fake it till you make it, because that's a bit bullshit, but it's a bit like everyone's still learning. No one goes into you don't learn how to run a digital agency. You don't learn how to be an artist manager. You don't go to school. You can go to school for it, but most managers didn't go to arts management school. They came through other paths.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of that. Like, you can figure it out if you're dedicated and passionate enough, and you really want to. You can figure it out. So I think that's always been a bit of a principle from the agency through to even Linktree. Now we're a little better at that and a bit more structured with it. But that's definitely one that we had early on.
Well, and that would permeate with the way that you manage people as well. You would get a problem and you say, well, so long as you hit this, this, and this, just that's all that matters. And I'm definitely guilty of that. I feel like one of our staff members mentioned that to me a couple months ago. I was like, oh shit, I'm that guy. Like, I'm that guy that would just give a vague answer and then say, go figure it out. Which is, it mainly comes down to like lack of resources, doesn't it? You just don't have
lack of resources, and you don't always have the answers. Like, now we're investing a lot into building our own leadership skills and stuff, because we need to. We're still learning as we go. But there was definitely an element of like, do what your intuition says. What do you think you should do in this situation? And then giving a bit of guidance on how we do it. I think because I probably always came from a sales background, a relationship background, I tried to have a bit of that empathy when managing staff, especially for the first time managing people, to be a bit like, all right, how would I it wasn't how do I treat this as like a client, but in a way there's that empathy, put yourself in their shoes. How are they thinking about this problem or issue? And then try and resolve it with them, as opposed to just being like, well, you should just do this and deal with it because that's how it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly. So that's how I try to approach that. And it seemed to work. The agency had pretty low turnover in staff, and I think we grew it to about 40 people at one point. It's a bit smaller now, but yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell you, managing people is really hard.
It's very hard, and it's a people business.
It's a people business in agency life, and it's everything's a people business. Even if you're not a service business where your clients are people, like Linktree, we're a product, it's still, we have to motivate a team of people to kind of across a common goal and to all try and do the same thing. And people from multiple walks of life, backgrounds, skill sets, and job descriptions, and yeah, I don't know if anybody masters it that quickly.
Ever. No, I don't think.
Or maybe even ever.
I don't think they do, but there's no doubt, like when you're in a sales role, it just makes you a bit more wary of things. You often advocate more for the other side without even realizing, which is nice.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a bit of a saying I've heard from HR people that salespeople often make the worst managers. I have seen that in some cases. It's not because I don't want to be a good manager. I don't want to try. I think sometimes their brain is wired towards just like achieving goals and outcomes and like hitting targets. And sometimes that stuff that takes time, managing people, nurturing, growing their skill sets and the feedback loops you need to have. Sometimes salespeople are just like, and it's all about the outcome of like, we're just going to get this done. We're just going to close this deal. We're just going to do X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's entirely true, but I've had like 2 different HR people say that to me, which surprised me. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I definitely wouldn't say that you and I would be the typical salespeople, because we wouldn't be doing conversations like this, because that type of individual, I've worked with people like that and they are amazing in an organization, but yeah, they can never be anything else really, which is fine. They're like almost a gun for hire, which, you know, there's something cool about that. Yeah. Being able to be a gun for hire.
Totally.
Let's talk Linktree. So, launched 2016. Most people would know it as essentially a link in bio, essentially platform. It basically gives people an insight of, I guess it came from the insight of people were getting tired of having to constantly change the link in their bio. Pretty simple stuff. Founded 5 years ago. You guys have raised a bunch of money. I think more importantly, you have millions of customers, and within 6 months, you have people like Alicia Keys jumping on the product, Alicia Keys' management, which is all, you know, I think when you have things like that in this business, that's sort of like an aha moment. I feel like for us, although it's nowhere near the same level of what you guys have done, we had a similar thing where you realize that the real estate of that link is so important. Like when people were putting up talent at Neuralle in their bio on social, that then got people just seeing it and coming to us and saying, like, I remember one email we got was like, what is this? Like literally the email is, what is this? And I'm like, this is a business. So, you know, you're 5 years in now. The first iterative product was pretty basic, and then you realize you had to go rebuild it. What else has been covered in the media? All the usual stuff where, you know, it was Nick Molnar. Was it Nick Molnar? You just recently raised money from. I think for me, the big excitement is around the social commerce stuff, which is what I want to get into. But I guess I'm curious for you, and the time that you've been in the business, what's been the sort of best and worst thing about it?
I think the best thing, it's probably a few. It was a side hustle to the agency. And so we grew it pretty sustainably. I think we weren't necessarily thinking of it as like, oh, this is a startup where we're going to do the typical startup things of raise money and all that. So it was profit. It was bootstrapped. We put our own money into it, and it was profitable until we raised money. And it was always profitable up until a couple of years ago when we first raised. And so that was probably, it was a good thing because of what it taught us. But it definitely changed our mentality now since raising money. And in a way, I wouldn't say it's the worst thing, but in a way, it was definitely a lesson around move faster. We saw traction early on. We should have moved a lot quicker than we did.
Right. Okay.
with it. Like, so we started it. It was born in 2016. Really, the big focus on putting a team around it, separating from the agency, all that kind of stuff has only really been, 2.5, 3 years. So whilst it's technically 5 years since the first Linktree ever went out there and we're using it for our clients and our own use cases, it's really the last 2.5, 3 years that it's been like massive focus, monetization in terms of the pro product, all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't say it's the worst thing, but it's definitely like a lesson. I think then the other best thing is like just the variety of users and use cases, and the fact that we can enable so many people to connect their audiences. Now we can help them monetize. We're democratizing people getting online in a way that they couldn't before. Building a website is beyond a lot of people, technically, financially. You and I, we're technically minded. We could set up a Squarespace or a Wix or whatever pretty quickly and figure it out. For a lot of people, that's beyond them. And Linktree allows them to get online under 30 seconds, create a Linktree profile, put in their social handles, connect, link off to all the relevant places that's important to them. That's it. That's their presence. That's their online presence done in 30 seconds, and it's free. So seeing that being done organically is definitely the best thing. I think the other part would be it's a team. We've got over 110 staff now across the world.
Wow.
So building a team and getting people on board that also believe in this is also the best thing.
Yeah.
But then I think the worst thing is some of the challenges around like we play in the social space. And so there's definitely been a few moments of, people using it for nefarious ways, like misinformation, spam. We're now on playing at getting to playing the same levels as social and tech platforms because of where we exist. So having to put in proper trust and safety teams, and a lot of that stuff it's the unintended consequences of building a product like this. In a way, it's a good problem, but it's also probably like, I wouldn't say it's a great thing either when people are using it for unintended ways.
Yeah,
and then that also
that stuff's going to happen anyway. I mean, but I can see what you mean. It would be frustrating.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There was a moment when Instagram banned us for about 30 minutes. That was a heart-sinking moment of oh shit. Quickly reinstated it. We had, I can't remember how many, tens of thousands of our users report the ban to Instagram, and they quickly reinstated it as a mistake. It was just their algorithm thinking the URL was something wrong or spam. And so now we have a working relationship with Instagram and TikTok and all the platforms. So that was definitely a moment of like, oh shit, we're done.
Yeah.
I'll pack it in.
This is it.
But yeah.
How long was that turnaround out of interest? Because I saw that was 2018.
Yeah.
Was it a day? Yep. Was it a few days?
No, it was like within 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it happened really, it was like, or maybe it was a bit longer, but they turned around pretty quickly. And because they had instantly, we had reports from all our users being like, Instagram banned, and like Twitter was going off, and they were just reporting to Twitter, to Instagram, like, this is wrong. And they quickly realized that they'd inconvenienced their users. So they sent us an apology and reinstated it, which was lucky.
That must have been an aha moment as well, because you must have been like, oh shit, like we are here to stay based on our user base,
Definitely was. And I think that was always a lot of early feedback we got from people like, you'll never go anywhere. Instagram will do it themselves. They'll ban you, whatever. And we didn't really play into that. We're like, whilst it started as an Instagram thing, the problem became, and we realized the problem was a lot bigger than just Instagram. It was every social platform. Fragmentation across the internet exists massively. I mean, how many social accounts do you have?
Yeah,
I think 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
I think the average at the moment is 8.9 that everyone has. So if you think about that I think in 2014, that was like 4.5, the average was. So we realized the problem was a lot bigger than just Instagram, and we were building a platform agnostic tool for people to use. So we believed in that. And whilst it started there, and yes, a lot of users come from there, it was, yeah, it still definitely was an aha and oh shit at the same time.
So you guys are in like this unique space. I don't know whether you'd coin it as social commerce as yet, because you fit into other things as well. That's not just that, but there's this idea that I've been exploring recently where you have what they call social selling, which is your classic advertising, marketing, etc., that you would see on the feed. Maybe some organic posting, etc. So this is brand-based stuff. And then social commerce, which is this sort of intertwining of commerce within social platforms. So that could be with influencers. It could be on the platform itself, like being able to buy products on the platform itself. And, you know, I know you mentioned before that we should have got into this space earlier, but this social commerce idea really came from China. And it came from China because they sort of skipped a generation of tech. And because they've got a centralized economy and political state, a lot of these big tech companies offered a lot of these tools in the process. So, you know, when I look at what you guys offer, one company would offer the social platform, the link, and the payments mechanism. Whereas in the West, we have the social company, we have the linking company, which is you guys, and then we have the payments company, which might be like Square. So it's taken a while to get here, but it feels like we've got all the plumbing, so to speak, to start to make this really work for people, which is why I'm excited about it. I know because our agency's associated with sort of creators and social. For me, it seems to be like the most fitting word for this space at the moment. But my wife and co-founder and one of our advisors, Nick Hodges, who I mentioned before, is like, well, you don't want to jump into a buzzword too much. So how do you describe this space that you're in? I mean, you guys are the category leader. So I guess I'm curious how you describe it to someone.
Yeah, it is a challenge, to be honest, because we sit across quite a lot of verticals or movements, if you will, or spaces. And that's also reflected by our user base. And so we are moving into commerce with some features we've released recently by allowing our users to transact through the product and sell products. But we also sit squarely in the creator or passion economy. We sit, you know, we're one of the many tools that sit in that space that help creators connect their ecosystems or community tools. Some people bucket us as a community tool or an audience management tool.
Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting space. I think for social commerce, what I love about it, to your point before, around the pipes are there, but I love that it's reducing friction, because you would have to run a bunch of ads or organic posts, link off to a website, do a bit more clicking around, and then go through the purchase process. Whereas now you can literally just buy something on Instagram or TikTok or Pinterest. And I think, you know, you mentioned Square, but like Shopify, Square and Stripe, and Shopify is building so many great tools to integrate with everybody. I mean, Shopify's an amazing business, but they're a platform business. They've got the pipes that anybody can build on top of now as well, which is amazing. And I think where we're starting to go with it is in a similar direction. So platformizing the product a little bit, allowing more people to build within Linktree, being an agnostic tool where across every social platform, people use us in the real world with QR codes and email signatures. So we don't necessarily want to just own the way people only transact. We want to enable it and democratize it. But at the same time, we just did a partnership with Spring, for example, where people can embed their Spring store and their Spring catalog within their Linktree. So creators can now, you know, hey, shop my merch, click a link, it drops down with 6 of their Spring products, and you can then transact like that. So we're sort of starting to go into that direction, allowing the multitude of users, Linktree, to connect with the other platforms that make sense for them.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing to me, because reading this book recently about it's called The Square and the Tower. It's about centralization or hierarchical structures versus decentralized structures. And like, I feel more and more decentralization is it's sort of accelerated by technology, but it's also done in other ways, like through networks and so forth. So we've got this massive trend of companies like yours and Square and Shopify being less focused on creating a walled garden and more focused on creating plumbing, so to speak, that connects with everything to reduce friction. And I feel like that is sort of the way forward, so to speak. And it's really interesting when you look at, a walled garden, centralized, hierarchical versus something that's decentralized. Like we were talking on, I think off air before, about the classic marketing funnel, how you've got sort of awareness, consideration, conversion, and then you've got things like loyalty and advocacy and so forth. And they're talking about how social commerce changes that, where it's about experience, understanding, linkage, which is where you guys seem to really sit, is linking all of these components together. And then you got association and vibration, so to speak. So it is less reliant on one platform having all of these things or being able to do all of these things, and more reliant on many parties being able to do these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's where you're seeing a lot of things going. The explosion of the creator economy over the last couple of years too, and the amount of tools that are there are doing that as well. But I think you are also seeing social platforms trying to do the same thing now as well. They're trying to open themselves up from being walled gardens to being, oh no, we have Facebook shops now, or you can build on top of us a little bit more now. We're opening up a bit. What it's doing, and what we believe in at Linktree as well, it's giving the user, and particularly in this case, creators or influencers, more control and agency over their world and over how they make their own money, and not being dictated to algorithms. So whether it's a community platform like Patreon or membership platform, you can dictate how you're making money. You're charging your audience membership fees to unlock content for yourself. Or other platforms, there's a really great one, I don't know if you've seen it, called Pear Pop, that helps. It's a startup recently. It's been backed by Ashton Kutcher and Guy Oseary and a bunch of others, that has a whole bunch of the TikTok creators and celebs on it that you can have them, you pay them to, almost some like brand deals. Brand can come and use the platform to engage with these creators, but they are doing it in a way that's not just like a basic brand, like, hey, here's $1,000 to do a post. They're actually measuring against reach and CPM. So there's a guaranteed level of results you're going to get for what you pay for. But you can put the brief all through the platform, and they kind of build. So these other platforms are now building on top of the ecosystems and communities of TikTok. So this allows creators on TikTok to monetize even further. They can get a direct brand deal, where they could use a Pear Pop to do something themselves. Because all this stuff that's happening, that's building and playing into social commerce, what it all comes down to, like, it is giving creators an agency and sense of control over as well. It's not just about, hey, I need to build 1 million followers before a brand wants to talk to me to do a post. They're monetizing their audiences in different ways. And you've seen this hundreds of times. How many times you see an influencer on Instagram that might be in a certain niche, call it fitness, and then next thing you know, they're selling fitness courses, and they've got a fitness app, and they're doing workout classes that you can pay for. They've got a book. Yeah. So like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. I guess I'm curious for you guys, when you look at your position in the market. I mean, obviously monetizing the business, there's this pro account where you can get different elements of features like links, customization, commerce links, analytics, integrations, and so forth. What are the areas of product that you think you can help with the most over the coming years?
There's a few, and what we're embarking on at the moment, the commerce links is a massive one, and going deeper on that. So allowing our audiences to transact. We've got a support me link and a request me link in there at the moment, but we've seen use cases like coffee roasters selling cold brew kits, and some fitness instructors selling workout classes. But then where we think we can help, I think to my point before, is the integration with other pipes and other platforms.
Right.
And, so other platforms, but then also going deep on verticals, right? So there's no one vertical on Linktree that makes up, like, it's super horizontal. There's no one vertical that makes up more than 6 or 7% of our audience base.
Okay.
But with that, we want to go deeper on certain verticals and build tools for them.
Specific to them, yeah.
Specific to them. that are going to help empower them and enable their businesses to connect their audiences even further.
Right.
So a lot of what we do right now is agnostic. If you call it a musician, you could sell through the commerce links if you wanted to. You can link off to your streaming, link off to your tour dates, embed your music video, sign up mailing lists at the moment. But there's other things down the line that are important to an artist or musician that we can go deeper on. Then you think about the fitness industry, or like we have a lot of real estate agents use the platform. We can even think about certain features for them. So that's kind of where we're starting to look at things as well, going deep on verticals and feature sets there.
Out of interest, what are your top 3 verticals at the moment?
Music is up there. Creative, which is kind of
super vague.
It's super vague because it's the way people select that. Creators as a whole is obviously a big one, but it depends on people might define themselves as a creator. The health and wellness space as well is also a big vertical. So coaches, instructors, small businesses in that area. Basically where you've got a lot of digital entrepreneurs or people that are building their audiences and needing to monetize them. So that health and fitness one has grown quite a bit over the last year.
Yeah.
Like with COVID and then people having to you can't go to the gym to see an instructor, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
You. Are you intrigued by this episode? If so, go to our footer on the website, neuralle.com, neuralle.com. We're going to give you an insight. Each week it's going to be on business, marketing, or a topic that we covered in the episode. At all, we'd love your support and it would help us in developing the intellect around this series. But without going on too much longer, let's get back into this episode. So I guess I'm really interested. You've been on both sides of the equation in agency land and now on the tech side, facilitating this stuff for creators. Obviously, I sit here on this sort of talent management area, and our specialty has been TikTok, and that's sort of what brought us into the social commerce space. And the more and more I think about this space, the more I realize there are tools that can replace activities that we do, which is great. I'm not here for sitting on people's shit and just claiming a commission for the sake of it. And I wonder more and more, what is the activities that managers or let's call them advisors, knowledge people can assist with in this ecosystem. So a good example is we've said internally, we will never have more than 20, 25 creators on our roster. We'll just work very closely with some very big creators in this space. But we still get people that come to us for questions, whether they see management as something they need for advisory or a bunch of other things, like maybe they don't understand how to build the plumbing for themselves or utilize these tools like Linktree. For someone who's in a sort of knowledge space or services space like myself, what can talent managers do better for this new social commerce ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something we're looking at, how we as Linktree can add value to agents, managers, people that are providing these services for influencers and creators. Thinking back to like artist management days, it's different for a musician, but there's an element there of there's the business side of things. Like, I don't know how to run my business, or I don't want to run my business. I want somebody else to do that, to pay them for that. I think there's the relationship side. I mean, creators are probably getting inundated with requests, so someone to streamline all of that. But beyond that, actually, I think there's that like help them craft a narrative that's different to somebody else that is then going to turn into monetization features, be it through an app like a massive app that already exists, through a niche app, or something else that brands are then going to want to work with them on. So I think that narrative and brand building piece is a good one. Then it's like, what else can you do that others can't? I see this a lot with MCNs and their creators and on their rosters. It's they're all taking a commission of some sort of their ad revenue, but what it is, they're offering something that other MCNs can't, be it relationships, networks, access to things, discounts, experiences. Experience is a big one that a lot of the talent agencies in the US are offering their creators, because creators want to create. They want to be seen. They want to be experienced, work with other creators. So often we've been hit up at Linktree about like, hey, can you pay for this day? A bunch of our creators are going out to the zoo. Do you want to cover it? Or they're going for dinner. Do you guys want to pay for it as like a sponsored event? Like random stuff like that. But it's because like this is the agent or the manager trying to find brands that will help cover this stuff for them, that it's exclusive to their creators on their roster.
Right. Okay.
So the experience thing is an interesting one as well. And then, how that taps into social commerce, social monetization. I think it then probably comes back a bit to the creator on what their thing is, right? If are they just creating generic video content compared to, do they have a niche? Is there something that's like they're really tapping into some audience that they're connecting with, be it, parenting, teaching, whatever.
Yeah.
That you can then go deep on.
Something to think of it like sort of the private wealth space. Like you got the high net worth individuals that need like a certain tailored level of insight, and often it comes down to strategy. But there's also like, again, there's that group of people that I guess I'm curious that a tech platform may not necessarily right now be able to offer, but there's people who sort of, if our top 20 like have 1 million followers, but there's people hitting me up that have 50, 60,000 followers, and they still want that insight. I guess I'm curious, what is it that we can do to assist them that gives that little bit of experience? And so that's the gap for me at the moment, is like, what is that special place? Because they can do things like set up a Linktree and all that sort of stuff, but again, they sort of seem to need something a bit more. Anyway, it's an industry problem I'm thinking about more and more.
Yeah, I mean, and it also depends on their goals. Their goals are grow audiences. I think there's something there that their support network, be it a manager or an agent, I think should definitely be helping with, like building out a strategy for them to do that, because that's going to help them in the long run monetize their business.
Yeah.
If that's important to them. If that's not, then it could be something else.
Yeah. So the real estate insight was like a really big thing for me when you had in this interview that you realize the value, you and your brother realized the value of the real estate of the bio is so incredibly, like, it's so true. Like I said, we had that experience where we put things like talent at Neuralle in people's bios, and then all of a sudden people start messaging us and say, hey, I noticed you manage this person, etc. That's obviously an insight that you guys realized at the time. Are there other big insights that you've had in this social commerce space that you think others have missed? Like, what seems obvious to you but not to others in this space that people continually miss? Like, I'm sure you go into meetings and you still get objections, right?
Yeah, not as much now, but we used to, definitely.
What's the biggest one today?
I think there's a couple of challenges in that there is a pretty low switching cost to that bio, the changing of the bio. So it is the biggest piece of real estate in social, but it's also sort of low switching cost. It takes nothing to switch it out for a competitor or whatever else, So you, with your talent that you manage, might say, right, we're putting Linktree across all your bios. We're going to essentially manage it for you, control it. But then your talent one day could just be like, oh, I want to link to this because I like this video. I'm just going to put it straight in there. Boom, it's gone. So that's definitely a challenge. I think from an insight view is the power of the brand. So in the early days, we had to do a lot of we didn't do that. It wasn't a purpose-built thing. We had a lot of UGC created for Linktree when it first started, like an Instagram hack.
Uh-huh. And
what happened was, now that's switched around. People are like, don't use Linktree, build your own website, bad for SEO, blah, blah, blah. But what's happened over time is we've almost become the category noun, where people will say, go to my Linktree, even if it's not a Linktree in their bio. And so the branding is really important, because sometimes you would have links in there that might be a bit.ly or some random thing. You don't know what you were going to get to.
Yeah.
So what we worked really hard on is building a consistent experience for the visitor. So when you land on a link tree, you know what you're going to get. And when you see a link tree in a bio, you know what you're going to get. Sometimes I mention the brand link tree to people and like, so what are you talking about? And then, you know, when you go to an Instagram, the link, another link, oh yeah, I see that thing all the time. Yeah. So we've worked hard on the UX and UI for a visitor. When you land there, we've really tried to make the experience consistent and once you can customize your links, you know you're landing on a link tree when you land on one.
Yeah.
And we've been conscious to not just like add a bunch of shit in there and become a MySpace to ruin that experience. So that's definitely a massive insight, which I think we get requests all the time, but I want to put this in there and I want to make my video up here and I want to like make my grid look like this before. And, you know, and if we just went to every feature request we got, we'd have a mess of a product. So, there's been a lot of conscious decisions on that front too.
What's the current thought process internally around the SEO component? Because I can see this for creators replacing a website. Yeah.
We've worked really hard on it. I think our domain reputation score now is something like 93 or 94. So we've built a lot of trust with you know, the Googles and all the algorithms. So that's healthy, and people's names are now starting to come up in search results with their Linktree profile. But in terms of replacing a website, definitely. We are seeing now we're in the top 300 websites of the world. When you look at Alexa rankings.
Wow.
People are using us in place of a website or in addition to, but a lot of brands will use us in their bio link rather than their website, because for a brand, you build a really beautiful brand immersive experience, a website that costs you $100,000, but it's not necessarily what's important to you right now. What's the most recent relevant information you want your audience to go to. It isn't always on your website. Your website's not always updated. Right. If you want to link to a YouTube video, get people to sign up to your mailing lists. We see brands like Red Bull and Qantas put their Linktree in their social bios, not their websites. So that's on one end of the spectrum in terms of like the high end users, so to speak, or the technically proficient users. On the other end, my point before on democratizing getting online, a lot of people don't need a website. They're building audiences on social. They're building their brands on social. And to the monetization piece too, they're monetizing through social, be it through brand deals or otherwise. So a lot of people don't necessarily need a website until a certain point for it to do something for them. I think we see we see a huge amount of use cases for it because particularly in like, say the affiliate marketing space even. We did a little campaign with Amazon influencers, Muslim influencer program a couple of years back because we had a whole bunch of users that were selling products through Amazon. So their business was all about building audiences around a niche and then selling products through Amazon, building their own kind of connection and community. They didn't need a website. Like their business was being run by selling through other platforms, to your point before, and the pipes exist through multiple ways. So yeah.
On the Linktree point of thing you were mentioning before that people will have that in their bio. Like I should have put in the caveat at the start. All of our talent, when we sign them up, we make them get a Linktree. So
nice.
I think it's which makes me realize we need to get an agency account and not just get them to put in their own account.
Yeah, let's talk after about that one. Yeah, nice.
So we can get that set up properly because there is no doubt where people want certain things designed, and that is where the customization of the actual theme is really good. Now, I want to get into some rapid fire questions to finish things off, but I've got to ask you before that. You and your brother do a few of these interviews. What's something you wish you could talk about more that you just don't get asked?
I wish I had something really insightful here that I think Alex probably would. He's a bit of he likes to go deep on science and space. He's been and like the Northern Lights. Ask him about the Northern Lights. He's been there twice. He loves that stuff. For me, it probably would be music and music itself and that world. But to be honest, I had twin boys a year ago, and my life the last year has just been like twins work, twins kind of sleep a bit, and it's just like Groundhog Day, and being in lockdown again is just like the same. And now other things like, it's like, hey, what have you been up to lately? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you like? What am I?
Twins.
I don't know, dude. Baby books, how to get them to sleep podcasts. Like, that's honestly it's been a bit of me and my wife and I like, shit, when do we get time to ourselves again?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Are they identical?
No, fraternal.
Okay. So like you and your brother.
No, we're not twins, but
I was going to say you two.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you guys were fraternal twins. I don't know why.
No, we're there's 6 years difference, but it's a lot of similarities.
Who's older? Who's younger?
You're older, but we'll often get asked that when we're next to each other, which Alex takes a lot of offense to. Poor guy.
Yeah, poor bastard. That's so funny. Do twins run in the family?
No, not in our family. On my wife's side, her grandmother's a twin.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a massive like, oh fuck. We found out it was like I was laugh crying for about 5 straight minutes in the ultrasound room. It was just like until the nurse had to be like, can you just chill a bit?
Yeah, like relax. It's funny though. We I haven't had, only on my my dad's side of the family, my cousin, she had twins, but it was from her partner's side, so it's not blood related. Because it often has to run in the family, it has to be genetic apparently. And yeah, the one thing she said to me is like, while it's troubling, it's hard at the start. If you have a certain amount of kids that you want, so I think she always wanted 3 or 4 kids. She said it certainly takes away the need for pregnancy cycles. So she said it saves time. It's more efficient.
Yeah. When it happened, we're like, well, this is very us. We're always trying to find efficiencies. So yeah, I'm into it.
All right. Rapid fire questions to finish things off. What's in your fridge at home?
All right. So we're in lockdown. So I've been ordering all sorts of stuff from, supporting local businesses. So pre-made cocktails, condiments and sauces from businesses. But I haven't really been drinking the cocktail because I had a cold last week. It's a leftover birthday cake. It was my son's birthday on the weekend. So there's a bit of that in there still.
Nice. What type of cake?
Yeah. My wife made 2 cakes because as twins, you have to have a cake each. You can't share a cake. It's the golden rule of twins, apparently, which we learned early on. So like a lemon and orange cake and a strawberry cake.
There you go.
It's good stuff.
What type of cake do you like? Are you an ice cream cake kind of guy?
Love ice cream cake. Love like decadent cakes. Love pastries. Just, yeah. Give me around any kind of cake and bakery.
Yeah. All right. Best purchase under $200.
Foam roller.
Foam roller. Okay.
I love my foam roller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to like stretch out the glutes, the hammies, feeling sore. I think especially with lockdown, not being able to go and do classes and whatnot. And just, I love my foam roller. My wife gives me shit about it, but every night the babies go to sleep, I'm on the foam roller, just stretching out.
Yeah.
And then I bought like a little an abacus for the babies. And so they're just like figuring out how to move stuff around and just fixated for a good 15 minutes. So that was
a good purchase.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say with the foam roller, I bought a sort of massage ball recently. It's not spiked. Okay. It's just a round ball, and that is amazing.
Yeah. I'm into that.
All right. Last question for you. Podcast, doco, or movie you've been watching, listening to of late?
One I love is Reply All.
Okay.
Classic. I love they go deep on random internet topics. But most recently, I've been listening to, and this is probably a very typical startup founder, so sorry, but listening to VC20 by Harry Stebbings. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
He's one of our angel investors in Linktree.
Is he?
But just like the 20-minute podcast interviews with founders and really, high level people. So you get like a bunch of insights in 20 minutes. So for me, it's just like if I'm cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, just whack it in, and it's I've been going listen to that lately too.
Yeah, he what's his show called? I was just looking it up. 20-minute VC.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, he's been around for so long. He was like the guy that got me into sort of the tech world, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
He made it fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. He makes it fun. He's super young too.
He's very young. How old is he?
I don't know, early 20s. I know that.
Is he early 20s? Right. I thought he'd be like mid 20s by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really, really young. But like obviously really insightful. That's a good one. Reply All is a classic. Like that is
a classic. Yeah.
If people like
it's
that.
It's a classic. It's a good one to just, I don't know. They go deep on some random fascinating stuff, which I love.
If you like going deep on stuff, but if you like history, like it's a massive caveat. You have to like history if you listen to this, but hardcore history is amazing.
I've had a couple of mates recommend that too.
Yeah, because each episode is like 4 hours.
Yeah. Man, I wish.
It's really intense, but I really, really like it. What's his name? Dan Cullen. He is unreal. Anyway.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. I think I need to. Listening to that would take me a year just to get through in like 20-minute chunks at the moment. Yeah. And now like there's no like not commuting anywhere anymore. So like it's really hard to just actually get into podcast zone now. Not in the car, Yeah,
I would agree with that. We noticed a massive reduction in downloads when COVID happened. Then it came back because, we had people messaging us saying, I'm so sorry we've missed the last 4 episodes because I haven't been driving or catching the train. I'm like, oh, fuck, wow, that's like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
That was that was a really interesting insight, I would say.
Yeah.
Anyway, Anthony, where can people find you on the interwebs?
LinkedIn, search my name. Don't know my actual URL, but search my name. You can find me on Linktree, obviously. That will get you to my LinkedIn and my Twitter. Linktree/Anzac, ANZAC.
Okay.
Anzac Day is also always a big day for me on the internet. Get tagged in all sorts of locations. But yeah, that'll be the best spot. Mate, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. We'll link the Linktree. So it's linktr.ee/Anzac. But we'll put that in the show notes. And thanks for coming on the show. Thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you do like it, please subscribe. And of course, like if you're watching the YouTube video as well. We'd really appreciate that. You can also find our Clips channel in the description. For audio, if you're not already listening, you can search Uncommon on Pocket Cast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts quite easily. For video, if you're not watching, you can search Uncommon on YouTube. And for behind the scenes takes and clips on social media, then definitely check out @uncommon_show on Instagram. But otherwise, look, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, thanks for listening.